Hello, it's me, Dave, coming to you not live but recorded here in my home office in Nagano, Japan, with my very first vlog about physical media. Physical media being discs, books, possibly cassettes, possibly pictures, games. I don't know. Whatever you can send in media mail, something that I might talk about in this vlog. So let's get boring, okay? The world's stupid. The world's getting really idiotic. People don't read. People don't buy books. People don't have DVDs. They eat what you feed them. And what they get fed isn't always what's best for them. So, personally, I always like to have a good, nutritious supply of brain food and a tasty, seductive supply of junk food for my brain. So some of these vlog videos are going to be about something more serious or less serious. So the first book I picked up off of my shelf here, it has the exciting title, Japanese Sentence Patterns for Effective Communication. I highly recommend this book to anybody learning Japanese. Of course, it always helps to have a teacher. It always helps to have a background. I took 3 or 4 years of Japanese in high school. I say 3 or 4 years because my fourth year I was just a teacher's aide in a class, not always participating in the lessons, sometimes grading papers and things like that. Um, it took me over 10 years to even be able to really have a conversation in Japanese. One big reason I was able to make that switch from having had taken a few years of Japanese to being able to have a simple conversation in Japanese to being where I'm at now, where I work almost entirely in Japanese, even though I still feel like my Japanese is not as good as it should be given the amount that I use it at work, the frequency in which I use it, and the level of the content that I talk about. But this book, Japanese Sentence Patterns for Effective Communication, a self study course and reference, is really, really good. It really, really helped me. And you'll hear a lot of people say that maybe immersion is the best way to learn a language, or that nobody ever uses the words in a textbook, so there's no point in learning that way. A lot of people say that, and honestly, I think it's full of shit. I think it's an opinion that has some merit to it, but I think there's no substitute for having a foundation in some sort of standards. So, learning English, you learn to speak it, you learn to read it, you learn to write it. You learn a lot of stuff. You forget a lot of stuff. But imagine taking your first language and just completely erasing all those formative lessons that you took that you may or may not remember now. You know, probably those things do help you on some level, and I think with a foreign language, studying helps too. But at some point, you have to go beyond the textbook, especially in Japanese, where you have formality levels. You have levels of des mas formality. You have levels beyond that. And then I got to the point in my Japanese where I was always speaking in this polite form, des mas. And one of my acquaintances one time, when I started shifting towards casual form, commented that I sounded more polite when I'm using less polite Japanese because maybe it sounds more friendly, whereas the word, polite, the way that they were using it, maybe sounded more polite, being more formal, where you use it in a polite situation or something like that. So to move away from the textbook Japanese to getting to the point where I could speak Japanese casually about a variety of topics and where I could speak it authentically. Authentically meaning not authentic Japanese, but expressing my own authentic self through Japanese. whether it was textbook perfect Japanese or not, was a big deal. It was a really big deal to get to that point. And this book helped me make that jump. So maybe if you do come from, like a beginner, early, intermediate background, this could help you make the shift. It's highly marked. I've got notes, bookmarks, multiple notes. So there's chapters and there's lessons. Okay, so this is what a basic lesson looks like in this book. You have an English sentence, then you have it written in Japanese, then you have it written in Romanized Japanese. Then you have a paragraph or so explaining the uses of it with a few asterisks here and there, telling you exceptions to the rule, of which there are fewer than in English, but of course there's still plenty. And then you have some examples. And with those examples and with those sample sentences, there are a list of nouns or vocabulary words that are typically nouns. And there's 50 plus, 100 plus, there's over 100 of these little mini lessons. And then a real cool feature of this book is that at the end of this book, there are appendixes, and these are really nice because it just lists out how to count in Japanese, which is not always as straightforward as it seems. And it has a list of commonly used counters. For example, a counter like mai, used for paper, shirt, ticket. Ichimai, nimai, samai. That's pretty straightforward. But then you have birds. You have a horse, cow, or a whale. And you have other sizes of things which require different counters. And then those counters each can take on like a different sound. So like 1 and 2 is one word, 3 is like a different sound. It's like in English: first, second, third. Then you go 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. So there's myriad examples of counters, and a lot of them are featured in this book. And it's a nice go-to if you want to create some self-drills for yourself. And there's also some sections in the back that list verb forms. So it's a great tool for self-study, but the key is this book is not going to teach you much if you aren't committed to self-study on your own. So while I was using this book, I had a couple of other things I was doing. I had a group of friends that I would hang out with, and they were all from Japan in the USA, learning Japanese at a language school. And they would hang out, play soccer, video games, eat snacks, talk about things. I hung out with them, and I gave myself a rule: speak when spoken to. That way I did a lot more listening than I did speaking. And I picked up the rhythm of the language and picked out words that I did and didn't know, and was asked questions that challenged me in a non-pressure setting, in a non-classroom setting, where it's okay to make a mistake and okay for people to laugh at me and stuff like that. Then the other technique I did was something I learned from somewhere. When learning a language, find a short 20, 30-minute video, an episode of a TV show or something. Watch it without subtitles every day for an extended period of time, like every day for a week, every day for a month. Whether or not you understand the words, I think it's good to get one where you understand some of the words or know a little bit about the backstory. But you watch that episode and you listen to the point where your ear starts to understand the pauses in between words or the breaks in between words. Then you really understand the rhythm of the language in a format that people who are first language speakers of that language enjoy and consume themselves. So that's it. This is a book I highly recommend. At the time I bought it, the recommended price was 22 US dollars. I'm sure you can find it used. I know it's still in print. If you're looking to create your own kind of self study practice in Japanese, and you're kind of in that intermediate, or just if you want a refresher course in Japanese to make sure you're still doing the basics right, I recommend it. It's a book I still have. I use it to kind of give people tips and to refresh myself. All right, that's it. Stay tuned for my next vlog. It'll be about a different kind of media.